It is a new week, Baruch Hashem, in the month of Nisan. The month of Nisan is a month of miracles and wonders. The Gemara says that when, oops, let me put this on the video. Oops, sorry. Okay, so month of Nisan is a month of miracles and wonders, and it's called the month of Geula, the month of redemption. And Hashem help all of us, so we should actually see redemption, see the Geula, see the coming of Mashiach, and all those need refuah shlema should have an immediate refuah shlema. I mentioned last week that there's something special about saying a story of the Baal Shem Tov. I actually wanted to say a story this week about the Rebbe Rashab, because you could say a story about any tzaddik Matzah Shabbos, but I actually found a story where we have both the Rebbe Rashab and the Baal Shem Tov. There's actually more than one story, and I'll share one of them between the Rebbe Rashab, who lived 100 years after the Baal Shem Tov, maybe more, and yet there's a story that connects the Baal Shem Tov and the Rebbe Rashab. Stories like this. The Rebbe Maharash, the father of the fifth Chabad Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab's yard site, the city Lula, was Erev Shabbos on Beis Bezalel. So he was studying with his father a Hasidic discourse called Pasach El-Yo, about the discourse of Elijah. It's a passage of deep Kabbalistic wisdom, and they're discussing it and learning it again and again. And his father, the Maharash, told him, I want you to come back to me later tonight. They had a code between them, what later tonight meant. There was, he used to say to his son, sometimes come back. His son was then 15 years old. It was in the year Tafresh Amud Vav, was his birthday, the 20th of Cheshvan. And he told his son to come back later tonight. Later tonight meant come back between 2 and 3 a.m. So the Rebbe Rashab said he went to home, went to sleep, slept for about 3 hours, and then he woke up and he said the morning blessings, as a minhag is, the halacha is, get up in the middle of the night, even though it's the morning hasn't come yet, you still say the morning blessings. He says the morning blessings, and then he goes to his father. And his father is studying with him, and suddenly his father turns to him and tells him, tell me what you saw in your dream. And he was shocked because he didn't tell his father that he had a dream. And tell me what you saw, tell me what you heard. And his father saw how upset and like he was shocked. And his father said, why are you so upset? Just share with me what happened in your dream. And who did you know? Who did you recognize? The dream that you had, who did you recognize in this dream? He told his father the following. He recognized in the dream the Tzemach Tzedek, his grandfather, and he recognized also Rabbi Baruch Shalom, his uncle, Rabbi Yehuda Leib, another uncle of his. And he described to his father that there was a table, and at the table there were two people sitting at the head of the table, one on the right, one on the left. And the person on the right had several people sitting next to him. The person on the left had several people sitting next to him. And behind the two people sitting at the head of the table, there were another 7 people. So the Rebbe Maharash explained to the Rebbe Rashab, I want to tell you who you saw. People sitting at the head of the table, people sitting at the head of the table were the Baal Shem Tov and the B'zitcha Magid. And those sitting behind them, 3 of them were students of the Baal Shem Tov, and 4 of them were students of the B'zitcha Magid. To the right of the Baal Shem Tov was the Alter Rebbe, and next to the Alter Rebbe was the Mittler Rebbe, and after that there was your uncle, the brother of the Maharash. Next to the B'zitcha Magid was the Tzemach Tzedek and another uncle of the Rebbe Rashab, brother of the Maharash. And then the Rebbe Rashab started to tell his father what happened in the dream. And he starts sharing with his father in detail what the Baal Shem Tov said, the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, the teaching of B'zitcha Magid, teaching of the Alter Rebbe, teaching of the Mittler Rebbe, the teaching of the Tzemach Tzedek in detail. the previous Rebbe writes all the details of the words that the Rebbe Rashab heard in his dream, and then he related the following. He said that the Baal Shem Tov, after all of these tzaddikim, all these 5 tzaddikim related different teachings, then the Baal Shem Tov said the following story that happened to himself. Baal Shem Tov said when he was about 20 years old, he and his fellow tzaddikim, the Starim, fellow hidden tzaddikim, would travel together to do various missions together. And they were in the city of Brody. And as the Baal Shem Tov was already a member of this exclusive group of hidden tzaddikim for many years, he was astonished to see the following spectacle. He saw a man who was very, very pale, and he had wooden sandals, and his eyes jutted out, and his face was very thin, his cheeks were very thin, and the people were wishing Hershel the goat, how's it going? He was carrying a load on his shoulders. You should carry it in good health. Hershel the milchika, Hershel the milkman, Hershel the milchika guy. You should travel and you should carry in good health. And Hershel responded to everybody, everyone be well. And he was sweating, carrying this heavy load, heavy burden on his shoulders. So the Baal Shem Tov said that he saw on top of Hershel a beautiful light of God, and he had never seen such a light before. And the Baal Shem Tov said it resembled the light that shined from Moshe Rabbeinu's face. And neither he or the other tzaddikim knew who this guy was, and he asked about him. And the people told the Baal Shem Tov, this man, his wife passed away 10 years before. He has 2 sons who are being supported by his wife's family. And he himself does a good living. He makes a nice living as a porter, and he carries things, but he gives all of his money away to support 4 goats that he has in his house. That's what they told him. So Baal Shem Tov paid attention to him and wanted to learn the secret of this man. And he watched him, and he couldn't figure it out. He couldn't figure out what's special. Why is this light of Hashem shining on him? It's an unusual light. Now, other tzaddikim also saw this, other tzaddikim with the Baal Shem Tov, and they also, these 2 tzaddikim with the Baal Shem Tov, had no idea who this person was and why he merited to have this incredible light. Rabbi Hershel, Rabbi Ephraim, who were with the Baal Shem Tov on this mission, they couldn't figure out what is going on. Baal Shem Tov said that he knew at that time that his prayers were responded to in heaven. He knew that there was an impact. When he would ask for something, Hashem paid attention to him. And he saw for this thing, he's not being answered yet. And therefore, that made him care all the more to know what is going on with this man. Who is Hershel sick? Who is Hershel the goat? So Baal Shem Tov waited for Shabbos. And after Shabbos, the Baal Shem Tov had a Mlav Malka. After the Mlav Malka, after eating the meal after Shabbos, he decided he's going to fast for 3 days and 3 nights. He fasted for the next 3 days and 3 nights. And Baal Shem Tov was staying, it's called Hektish. Hektish is a place for people to stay that communities would raise funds for traveling people. Very decrepit place. That's how Baal Shem Tov was staying. After Mincha on the 3rd day, meaning after Mincha on Tuesday, Baal Shem Tov came out of the Hektish and he saw Hershel there. And he told him, Hershel, I heard that you have goat's milk for sale. I would like to buy some goat's milk. So Hershel said, listen, I do have goat's milk, but I don't sell it because I am a Jew like you, and a Jew has to share from his bread and whatever he has, and I want to give you my goat's milk. So the Baal Shem Tov and their Hershel went, they traveled to the outskirts of the city where Hershel was living in a ruin, in a very decrepit, filthy area. And the Baal Shem Tov came into his home, and as soon as they walk in the home, the goats come to Hershel and they lick his hands, they gather around him, and he gives the Baal Shem Tov some goat's milk. Then the Baal Shem Tov went to Daven Ma'ariv. After the Baal Shem Tov Daven Ma'ariv, he stayed with Hershel that night, stayed that night in his house. Hershel said to him like this: "You said that my wife passed away 10 years ago. And she came to me in a dream during the Shiva, during the time of mourning for her. And during the time of Shiva, she told me that she had always heard from the various Magidim, there were preachers would come to their town and tell them about what happens in the afterlife. And they would tell people how there are always angels that come to a person after they pass away to cleanse the soul, and the kind of deep dry cleaning the soul experiences, and how terrible and how horrible it is to go through this. Chibut HaKever, and various parts of the cleansing process of a soul after the afterlife. So Baal Shem Tov said that this woman, her name was Rachel Leah, she told her husband that when she passed away, Kaddish was said, and the angels answered with a great voice, Amen. And she was taken immediately. There was a great entourage. Everyone came to greet the great Tzaddikus, Rachel Leah, Bas Fegadvasha, Rachel Leah, Bas the Daniel. Her father was a very simple man, and her father was a tanner. But she, from a very young age, the moment that she was able to think for herself, she devoted herself to visiting the sick and taking care of people who were sick. And for 27 years of her life, that's what she did. She would take care of people who were sick and show interest in them and help them. And that was what life was about. She took care of sick people for 27 years. So she comes to her husband in this dream and she tells him that she was taken immediately to Gan Eden, and there was a great acceptance in Shemayim. And who accepted her? Who greeted her in heaven? She was greeted by all of those souls that she had healed, all the angels that were created by the good deeds that she did. In those 27 years, she had healed so many people, and all of them were there when she passed away to greet her and bless her when she arrived in heaven. So she said to her husband, Rabbi Hershel, Hershel, listen, you are not a knowledgeable person. You're a regular guy. You don't know so much torah. Let me tell you something. Pay attention to kindness. Kindness is really valuable in heaven. You want to do kindness. So Rabbi Hershel decided from that moment on that he is going to use the money that he has as a porter to take care of these 4 goats. And that's what he did. He raised the 4 goats, and he told the Baal Shem Tov that he really does it well. He could survive on the money he's making, but he has a very limited income because he gives it all to support the goats. And with the goat's milk, he gives the goat's milk to poor people, to sick people. And Baruch Hashem, with the Baruch of Hashem, he told about Shem Tov that people are really able to be healed by this goat's milk. Then he told about Shem Tov, last night, my wife came to me again in a dream. This was the first time she had come to me since that time. And she told me, tomorrow you're going to meet a man. And you should tell him your story, because through this man, you will have eternal salvation. That's what she told him. So the Baal Shem Tov stayed with Hershel, and through the other tzaddikim in this society of the hidden tzaddikim, they studied with Rabbi Hershel for 2 years. They taught him Tanakh, they taught him all the 24 books of the Torah. For 3 years, they taught him the Mishnah and the Gemara, and Hashem opened his mind, like the Pischa Shel Ulam. Hashem opened his mind to become an extraordinary genius in Torah. And he was given the instruction from heaven to move to Annapolia, to move to a neighboring city. And there he lived in Annapolia and continued for 43 years of his life with the goats, feeding people the goat's milk, which had, Baruch Hashem, miraculous powers of salvation for healing. This Reb Hershel, when he passed away, the Chavraya Kadisha, they was led by a man named Reb Naftali, and other very important, knowledgeable Torah scholars. But despite the fact that they were so knowledgeable, they didn't really pay attention to this man. There was a rainy day, the day that he passed away. The previous Rebbe doesn't mention this in the story, but I think it says in Sfarim that a tzaddik, it's a sign of righteousness, is a rain during a funeral. Either way, there was a great rain, and the Chevra Kadisha, the burial society, arranged that people should go and they should bury him, and he was buried, and he came to Shemayim, comes to heaven. Rabbi Tzvi, Hershel, is accepted in heaven. Rabbi Tzvi ben Michil Zalman comes to heaven, and he is greeted by an incredible amount of tzaddikim. But at the same time that he's being greeted directly to go to heaven, there's a great uproar in heaven. The great uproar is that the heavenly court, the angels, accusing angels, were saying that this holy man was working so hard to help people for 43 years, and no one paid any attention to him. How come nobody looked at this man? No one paid attention to this man. No one honored this man. He was a man who dedicated, he was a hidden tzaddik, he was such a righteous, holy person, and nobody did anything for him. And there was a heavenly decree that was being sentenced against the Naftali Hertz and against all the members of the burial society and against the entire city of Annapolis. The previous Rebbe writes that Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, the sage of the Talmud, led a whole group of people, group of tzaddikim, who were entering into the heavenly court and trying to dissuade the decision of the heavenly court, but they could not convince the heavenly court that the court should let go, and the decree was moving forward for something terrible to happen to this city than happened to this city. But then came Reb Hershel's wife, Reb Tzvi's wife. They announced in heaven, make room, make room. Rachaleah bas Fegadvasha, Reb Daniel, Rachaleah, the daughter of Fegadvasha, and Daniel is coming. The great tzaddikus, the great righteous person is coming. Make room for her. And she arrives, and she comes forward, and she says, listen, how is anybody supposed to know this guy's a tzaddik? This guy is an old man by himself, and he's doing these things privately, and no one knows it. How can anybody expect him to be a tzaddik? How can anybody know he's a tzaddik? And think about it, she tells the heavenly court. This guy's whole life is about helping people. You think is this the reward for all of his good work, that you're going to punish the city of Annapolis? That's the opposite. And the heavenly court listened to her, and the decree was annulled. So that's the story. And there's so many different things that we could glean from the story. One of them is, of course, top lesson for me is how powerful it is just to reach out and to be kind to somebody. How valuable that is, and how that causes Hashem to pay attention to you when you go out of your way to be nice to somebody. And today, everybody is waiting for a kind word from someone else. Everybody, no matter how well-to-do someone is, no matter how many friends someone has, everybody is waiting to hear a good word from someone. And the Torah says, Barucheinu Avinu, Hashem should bless us all as one. This is a great vessel. As the Talmud says, the greatest vessel there is for all of God's blessings is peace. So you get together and wish each other well. This should be a vessel for blessing for all those in your shalom, and especially, please say at night as well for someone who is ill. You could say for someone who's ill at night. Please say tonight to Ilim for my dear friend, Rabbi Dr. David Goetz, David Shoshana, and for all those in your shalom. There are many people in your shalom. And let's have them in mind. Let's add an Avos Yisrael. Think about this. This guy's face shined with the light of Moses. How do you have that light? That light came to him because he had sacrificed for Avos Yisrael. He had sacrificed for the love of his fellow Jew. This is something incredible. You get the light of Moses in you by, what is the light of Moses? The light of Moses is the light of sacrifice of Avos Yisrael. Anyway, it should be a wonderful week. Wonderful means that Mashiach comes now. Then we'll see good news and everything. L'chaim, a good devach.
Chaim, Shavuot Tov.